All right, welcome back to Draws and Fades, episode 105, preview of the Open Championship at the Old Course of St. Andrews in beautiful Scotland. I'm your host, Owen Vrabel, joined by my co-host, Matthew Miller.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back.
And producer, Nick Boss.
What's going on, fellas? How we doing?
Pretty good. Xander Schauffele, back-to-back wins now with his win at the Scottish Open last week. I mean, we've definitely ripped Xander plenty for not being able to close prior. And, so he's coming in hot this week at the Open Championship, coming off back-to-back wins. So we'll, give a brief recap of the Scottish Open, but this week is all about St. Andrews, 150th Open Championship. Doesn't get better than that. Make sure to win big in 2022 with rotoballer.com's PGA Premium Pass. Rotoballer's premium DFS package includes exclusive tools, DFS cheat sheets, research stations, our lineup optimizer, and so much more to help you win big. Get your PGA Premium Pass for 30% off using promo code DNF10 for another 10% discount. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio to sign up today and start rotoballing like a boss. So I'm pumped, boys. Last major of the year, middle of July. My birthday is this Sunday. Feeling ready to roll for this week. And it's beautiful. I mean, the Open Championship, I think, sets like a nice – it differentiates itself because the style of golf can be so much different than what we see here stateside. So I'm excited. St. Andrews is one of those courses that, like, you remember watching as a kid, and it has, like, the distinct bunkering, has a distinct look to it. And, I mean, for the most part, we've seen so many of the guys that are playing here this week say it's one of their favorite courses to play at. So I'm expecting an awesome week. There's really no notables missing this week. The live golfers are here. We got the full field effect. Our boy Tiger Woods is back. The bionic man, basically, at this point. His leg is – I don't think seeing like a still shot of what his leg looks like up close would be pretty, but he's out there and he looks good. So I'm excited to see Tiger this week. And, got a little bit of a preview last week at the Scottish Open of what the links style golf can be like. But Xander Schauffele, Matt, your boy, now is on a little bit of a run here. So how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, it's been a rough little stretch for us. We've had Fitz and then Xander winning 2 in a row, kind of sticking it to us on the guys who can't win. So
yeah,
I think we need to end that this week. But yeah, it's been wild. I mean, I didn't expect Xander to go back to back.
Now he's kind of away a little bit. Well, he's kind of, he's slowly erasing this narrative. Well, not even slowly, he's quickly erasing the narrative. But yeah, I mean, you can't really.
I will say, if he had a 3-shot lead going into that final day, and he was giving it back a little bit, not to take anything away from him. Obviously, back-to-back wins is incredible, but it did kind of feel like he was opening the door a little bit. It's just the guys that were chasing him didn't capitalize on it. Like Spieth wasn't making any putts on Sunday. Right. Cantlay was, a little too late. Same as Fleetwood. Homa looked like he was making a charge, then he threw up a triple bogey, I think. It just didn't really seem like anyone was taking it from him. And to his credit, he held them off and he got the win. But he still had a little bit of the Sunday jitters.
And it goes to show you too. I mean, heading into last week, we kind of thought that the Scottish Open would play easier than this week. But, I mean, that will show you what the winds can do. I mean, there are definitely some tough conditions out there. He wins at 7 under, and there were, maybe 12 guys, 15 guys under par. Actually, no, there were 20 guys under par. But, I mean,
not what we were expecting. We thought the winner could get into the 20s.
Yeah, so we're a little bit off there. So.
Well, it seemed like that was the case because it seemed like there was going to be no wind. And then it started picking up, and that's what's kind of crazy about the weather over here. I feel like it shifts pretty quickly because even the day before that tournament, it seemed like it was going to be pretty mild for what most people were reporting.
Right. And so we're still in Scotland this week, so those same variables are definitely in play. And we haven't been at the Old Course since 2015. So we haven't seen it in a little while, but it is one of its biggest challenges is the weather. And if it's not going to be super windy, we could see a low score. We've seen low scores win. No, not low scores. We've seen good scores win this event. but it also seems like kind of one guy thriving on the week and winning by a considerable margin. And that might be something to look out for this week, but that's not really anything you can prepare for. And in terms of like trying to stack your card one way or the other with the advantages in the potential tee times on Thursday and Friday, like you said, it changes so frequently that you really are not going to know until they tee off on Thursday what the effects are going to be of the weather. So I don't think you can look too much into that. I think you got to stick to what guys you like, and if you end up with one side of the draw and something gets turned over, it could be tough.
There also isn't really a true like draw like most tournaments too, because it's just consecutive off the first tee. So it's not like there's a batch going off 1 in 10, in a 2-hour window. Like it just progressively goes all day too.
Right.
So
yeah,
just another wrinkle of fun if you're going to try and predict the weather.
Yeah. And speaking of wrinkles of fun, Pacific Coast time is not a good time zone to be in for this tournament because the first tee on Thursday is technically Wednesday night for me. So
that's a wild.
Webb Simpson's in the first group, and I believe he goes off at like 11:30 Pacific time. So tough to be in LA for this event. It's going to be strategic in terms of sleep, but other than that, I mean, it's awesome. I kind of like that they all go off of one. I think everyone's playing the same course for the most part, all day. And it's like they're not, like Paul said, you're not going to see the super drastic changes of, the waves, that we're typically used to. So, I mean, Scottish Open wise, not too much to highlight. I did hit Rasmus Højgaard top 20 plus 650. Neiman cashed a top 20 as well. And Fleetwood ended up being my closest outright. But like you said, Matt, like that was too little too late. Needed really for Xander and Kitayama to collapse. And that didn't happen. So tough to predict when Xander's going to win. But maybe now it's a little bit easier. Just take him. But it's like his odds aren't really changing. Obviously now he's at a shittier price than he would have been if he hadn't won last week. But, you're betting on him between 17 and 30 at most big events. So not much has changed except for the fact that Xander is now apparently a winner. So good for him.
Yeah, it's crazy, how quickly that could change. Like we went into the last major, which was, a month ago, and Fitz and Xander were perennial losers. And now they both have like major respect. There's nothing you can take away from them. I guess Fitz more than Xander because, he got that major, but still, I don't think anyone's really doubting Xander at this point. He just won back to back.
Yeah, no, and also like it's not like it was a made up like thought, but
no, it's still fair. Like,
no, it was fair, but also at the same time, it wasn't as drastic as we probably like to play it out in our minds. Like obviously Xander had won plenty of golf tournaments, and they just happen to be WGCs, no cut events for the most part. And Fitzpatrick has like 7 or 8 worldwide wins if you include the European tour. So it's not like they've never won golf tournaments before, but like it was tough to believe that they were going to do that, what they did in the past couple of weeks, especially in the fields that they were in. So,
but I still think like to our point, like it was still kind of a fair point we were making. Like when they won, they both went off like at 20-1 or like less.
Right.
Like it's if you had consistently taken them over the last 2 years, like you're not really making anything off of that.
No,
that was kind of our point all along. And
right.
it was valid. Now Xander's won twice, so you can kind of start to say he's moving toward profitable. But still, if you're not going off at big numbers and you don't win that much, I still think the point is somewhat valid.
No, it is still somewhat valid, and there are definitely guys that win more often than others. But now we're seeing maybe a little bit of a change of the tides here. So, and also I lied. The first tee time Pacific time is 10:30 p.m. So it's really tough. Yeah. Not exactly sure. Not really sure how the sleep
schedule.
Yeah. Fuck. It's tough. It's really tough.
That's a tough live reaction there. I got faith in you though.
Yeah. So anyway, this will be the 5th time we've been at St. Andrews since 2000. Obviously, Tiger Woods is a 2-time champion. Actually, well, he's a 2-time champion at St. Andrews, both in 2000 and 2005, where he won by 8 strokes in 2000 and then 5 strokes in 2005. and we saw it in 2010. Liu Oosthuizen won by 7 strokes in 2010, as still, somewhat of an unknown up-and-coming guy, the international player that people hadn't heard too much about. And then 2015, Zach Johnson wins this event in a playoff over Leishman and Oosthuizen. So it's been a little bit, 7 years, but it's pretty awesome for it to be back.
Yeah, and if we're going to talk about all 5, I think we can't forget John Daly.
Oh, that's true. John Daly.
The legend.
The legend of John Daly. Yeah. In a playoff over Constantino Rocca. How can we forget? I was 4 years old, and that was a year where the wind really picked up. So
he shot -6 or something?
Yeah.
He'll
be back. He's there this week. For John Daly to make the cut prop.
He's paired with Bryson this week, so
that should be exciting. Well done by them to put them together.
Yeah, 2 big guns together. The 2 opposite approaches. Bryson working on his body and the best way possible to hit it the longest, and John Daly stuffing the hot dogs and Diet Cokes in there.
Yeah, the scientist and the degenerate. Just ripping cigs in Bryson's face.
Bryson has to be like disgusted by him.
But he also has to fucking admire him too. Like John Daly created the long man being something that could be have an advantage, obviously. So good for JD, and I love seeing him in the prior champions pictures. I mean, he just sticks out like a sore thumb. It's
yeah.
So good to see him back. Plenty of prior champions will be back this week. But yeah, Matt, 150th Open Championship, St. Andrews. What are we working here this week? It is, I think, it goes a little bit unnoticed, like that it is a shorter course than people kind of think about when they think about St. Andrews.
Yeah, it's we're at the old course of St. Andrews, the birthplace of golf. It is a par 72, 7,305 yards, like you noted, very short for par 72. The greens are fescue with a mix of bent and POA, but predominantly fescue grass, similar to what we saw last week. They run pretty slow. The reason for that is because mainly there's like a big time wind factor over here, and that kind of makes putting a lot harder because the course is very exposed. It's a odd setup for a par 72. There's only 2 par 3s and 2 par 5s, 14 par
awesome.
4s. Yeah, so pretty cool. It's the 29th time St. Andrews is hosting the Open Championship. It's the most in the rotation out here. A little bit more about the course. The fairways are very wide and the greens are huge. So it's actually a lot of double greens on this course. Only the 1st, 9th, 17th, and 18th have single greens. The rest are giant double greens. The 11th hole, I actually read today, is 112 yards wide. Yeah. So
greens and reg.
Yeah, you should hit that green and reg. But you could be miles away.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of, lag putting and 3-putt avoidance, going into play this week. But a little bit about the course. I mean, you mentioned it, how it is short, and because of the way the fairways kind of like burn out, a lot of the balls run off the tee. So a lot of these guys are going to be hitting it a lot longer than they ordinarily would. I was reading a quote this week by a guy who's like from the area. He said he usually hits at 240 with the way the fairways are, rolling now and how firm they are. His drive was going like 280 to 300. That's how much rollout there is. And Padraig Harrington was giving some quotes this week as well about, it's not even about carrying the bunkers in the fairway because of how firm the fairways are and how, much of a rollout you get. That ball could end up rolling into another bunker further down, so it makes it a lot more challenging. The main, defense over here, kind of as you noted too, is the wind. If you get a light wind week, I mean, it kind of seems like this is a course that guys might be able to overpower. But I know there were, similar questions back in 2015 about this course too, and then we saw Zach Johnson win, and he's by no means a long hitter.
He's not
overpowered his way
overpowering
around the course.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's just this course has its way of holding up over time, and maybe we'll get win this week, and it's going to play tough. I don't know what your thoughts on that is. Do you think someone's going to kind of overpower it and run away with it, or do you think we're going to see a winner in the mid to high teens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I tend to think that this course will stand the test of time. I think that the wind definitely plays a factor, but also the fairways to an extent are enormous, and you're going to get a ton of run, but you can still end up in poor spots even though you're hitting a giant drive. And it really comes down to your wedge game and then being able to make those important lag putts when you need to, like get yourself a tap in par when you're 70 feet away on the green. Because even if you are playing, and a lot of these approaches are going to be inside 125 yards, and that doesn't mean you're going to be sticking them to 10 feet. You're going to have holes where the greens are still tough, they're giant, but it's not close. It's not easy to put them close. So, and the possibility for blow up holes are there in every hole. Like the bunkers are the other giant obstacle that these guys are going to have to overcome, where you're definitely not going to want to be in a bunker in the fairway, and you certainly are not going to want to be in them around the green either. So that's really where the strategy comes into play. Like no matter how long you're hitting it, like if you end up in one of those bunkers, like you're giving up at least a half stroke to the field on that particular hole. And in many cases, like you're going to be having to hit sideways or backwards out. And then that's why the wedge game comes right back into play. Like if you do need to sacrifice a shot, you still need to be able to give yourself a chance for par or a tap in bogey. So I think that that's kind of the reason why it kind of stands the test of time, because I think over 4 days, avoiding those traps are tough, and you're going to put yourself in a tough situation, green side or in the fairway, that is tough to just make pars all week. And obviously the birdies, you're going to need to be making birdies too. So the par fours are going to be awesome to watch. There's half of them are probably in theory drivable. So, I mean, guys are going to be going after it, but we'll see. I mean, Zach Johnson kind of makes you think like, hey, I don't know if bombing it out there is necessarily the way to win this event, but I don't know. Yeah, it's tough from that aspect because, you would think in theory that the longer hitters would have an advantage because they could even club down on a lot of these holes and still be putting it inside of 100 yards. So at the end of the day, I think it becomes a wedge game and being able to save yourself when you get in trouble.
Yeah, I think it's a good point with the bunkers. I mean, they're giant pot bunkers. You find yourself in them. I mean, even if you're getting out, you're not getting it close. It's not like a regular PGA Tour event where sometimes the bunker is better than the rough. Like if you're in these, you're screwed.
No, yeah, that's like throughout the year on the PGA Tour, like guys are pretty
they
fucking
aim
good
for the
bunkers
sometimes.
No, yeah, like that you're in a safer spot in the bunker than you are in the rough, especially at a U.S. Open or even more recently in a PGA Championship. Like that bunkers are a safer place than the rough, and that's not the case here. You basically want to avoid the bunkers at all costs. So you're going to have some tough chips that aren't in the bunkers, but they're not going to be nearly as difficult as if you're inside of them. So if even sand saves, like that's why it's also tough to model this tournament in particular, because you really can't compare the link style golf to anything that is played stateside. So all of the analytics behind how these guys have been playing over the past few months is really tough to really navigate exactly how they're going to hold up in this style of golf. So I think to make it easier, you look for guys who are driving the ball well and who have played consistently well with their wedge game inside of 125 yards. And then you're still going to have to be good on the greens and give yourself a chance. But yeah, the wind being down, we'll see. I can't envision someone getting to 20 under this week, but it could be possible. I mean, obviously the technology's improved over the past 7 years. Guys are hitting it farther, considerably farther. And we'll see. I mean, we've seen plenty of clips this week just from the practice rounds at St. Andrews. I mean, the 18th seems to be very attainable. There's going to be some exciting shots for sure, but I think there's also still the chance for the blow-up holes. So that's what makes it exciting.
There's been rumors too that if the RNA is not gonna let this at the 150th Open be like some kind of birdie fest. If the wind's dying down, maybe they'll make it extra, firm and fast out there, and they're gonna give these guys a test.
Yeah, no, they're not gonna water this fucking golf course at all. So The ball's going to be flying through the fairways. And that's the thing, too. Even with the fairways being as wide as they are, like you're going to see guys hitting it through the fairway. And then, again, your approach play out of the rough in this fescue type stuff, I mean, comes down to, I think, to a certain degree, similar to Augusta, like the guys who have played St. Andrews before, I think definitely have an advantage. There's not a ton of them in terms of like the young up and coming guys. And I think playing link style golf gives you an advantage as well. But it's not easy to cap this event because of all the factors we just mentioned. And a lot of these guys aren't playing this type of golf year round.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, even like some of the around the green and putting stuff, like we saw a little taste of it last week at the Scottish Open, but some of these shots you have to play, like they're not straightforward around the green shots. Like you have to play the slopes correctly and everything. Like Xander had a putt last week where he couldn't go at the hole. Like he couldn't go right at the hole. He had to play it way past off the hill and have it come back. And that's just the kind of stuff that you're going to have some creativity and imagination if you want to win, you know, around these style courses.
Yep. And like we've said, I mean, we've seen different types of players win this event. I mean, another fun open stat is there hasn't been a nation to win back-to-back open championships since Tiger won 2 in a row back in 2005, 2006. Wow. And then Harrington in 2007, 2008. So since 2009, there's been a different nationality to win each year.
Yeah, so Harrington stole the one from my boy Sergio.
That is true. And also not a great statistic for an American winning this year, but I have a pretty good feeling that that's not the strongest of trend predictors. So
looking at what I have for my card, I hope that trend dies.
Yeah. So, but yeah, other than that, like I said, I'm looking at obviously the par fours are huge. So par four scoring, guys that are playing well off the tee, the short iron approach game, and then guys with major history, open history, and to a degree for me, I think even St. Andrews history. I'm looking at more veterans than I typically do at a major, and my card's average age is certainly older than it usually is. So
I love it.
Yeah. So you got anything else, or should we roll into the odds list?
Yeah, I think we can get into the odds list.
All right. Well, I don't think it's a surprise by any means. I think for the last month or so, the way that Rory McIlroy has been playing, I've kind of felt like he's going to play really well this week, and I certainly could see him winning. And he is the favorite this week at 10-1 on FanDuel. Seen him as low as 9-1. Haven't seen many numbers better than 10-1. So he's your guy. He's the favorite. Obviously, winning the Canadian Open a few weeks back, he's in good form, and he's a 10-1. And then we got Xander Schauffele coming off his back-to-back wins at 14-1, Jordan Spieth at 15, Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler at 16, and then Matthew Fitzpatrick at 18. Shane Lowry, Justin Thomas, and Cam Smith between 20 and 22. So those are your top 9 guys, and I mean, it's a major. These guys are the most likely to win, and we've seen that come to fruition this year, obviously, with JT winning, in the 20-1 and under range. Scotty Scheffler winning the Masters, rolling in through his hot streak. And then Matthew Fitzpatrick, who we scoffed at being at under 30-1, wins the U.S. Open. So we've seen guys in this range win the majors this year, and for the most part, over the past couple of years, it's been pretty up to par, except for Phil Mickelson, obviously the PGA. So taking elite players at this event certainly makes sense. I think it's tough to sometimes stomach some of these odds. You got to risk a decent amount to win a decent amount. But looking at these top 6, Matt, or top 9, correct me, anyone kind of stand out to you as somebody you needed to take this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could quick dive into it. I don't know if you got there. I couldn't get there, but I think we both gave some serious thought to Rory.
Yeah, I gave
how well he's playing, and kind of he sets up perfectly for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I've also I thought to myself for weeks I was going to bet Rory this week, and then he wins the Canadian Open, and now he's 10-1. He didn't play last week in Scotland to prep in his own way, which we'll see if that works out for him. But I think it's tough to bet him at 10-1. I don't think necessarily the guys that are right behind him that he has a 50% chance better rate of winning this, which is kind of what the odds are trying to show you. And yeah, I mean, I went in all week trying to stomach it, and I couldn't do it. I'd rather add a few more guys that I think are going to be in the mix. And Rory's had a tough time. Like, I do think that the stars are aligning for him here, but at the same time, there's a lot of pressure on Rory. Like, It feels like that kind of, at this point, every year, as the year goes by and he doesn't win a major, it feels like the pressure continues to mount. Like, he's not really getting that benefit of the doubt where it's like, oh, well, he's playing well. So, like, you know, but I think that has been adding to it. Like, he played well at the Masters, played well at the U.S. Open, and we've seen him contend, but it's tough to bet someone at 10-1 at a major, even though, like I said, I think that's one of these elite guys are going to get it done. So,
yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the pressure has kind of is probably the reason that he hasn't won a major in so long. Like, he puts so much pressure on himself going into these, and especially now, like you mentioned, I mean, it's the Open Championship at St. Andrews. He's playing as well as anyone. He's the favorite. Like,
he's playing practice rounds with Tiger.
Yeah, he's now like kind of the face in the PGA Tour with this battle with Liv. Like, he's got a lot of pressure on him this week, and I just feel like it's a lot for him to come out and win, especially at that number. It's tough to take it. So I decided to go elsewhere as well.
Yeah, same.
It's gonna be tough to stomach if he wins, because I did take him for the first two majors of the year, and I do really like him, but it's tough at 10-1 to bite on it.
Right. And so going off that, I think that multiple of these guys are going to be in contention come Sunday. And that's where, you know, taking two of these guys kind of limits you down the board. And I think there are plenty of other names at better odds that have the potential to be in the mix as well. So I tried to narrow it down to one, and I landed on Jordan Spieth, who I've now taken multiple times in majors this year. Has not worked out quite yet, but Jordan Spieth is the style of golf. These link style courses seem to suit up perfectly for him. He's played tremendously at the Open. His history is phenomenal. He's got a win back in 2017, runner-up last year to Morikawa, and then two other top tens back in 2018 and 2015, which we were at St. Andrews back in 2015. He missed being in the playoff by one stroke. So I love Spieth here. He's kind of been trending all year to contend at these majors, and we haven't quite seen that come to fruition. Obviously, he missed a cut at the Masters, which is a surprise. And then the next week, he wins the RBC Heritage. Plays mediocrely at the PGA Championship, mediocrely at the U.S. Open. And then last week in Scotland, he really botched his round on Sunday, where he should have been in contention. Ended up double bogeying with the 3-putt. And I think he's going to be right back in the mix this week. So I decided to pivot to Jordan after not taking Rory this week. And I would have felt pretty shitty if he did win this week and I took him at both the U.S. Open and the PGA, and I wasn't on board for this week. So going back to Spieth, I think everything's been – ever since his turnaround, I don't know, what was that, like a year and a half ago, where he had kind of gone through that rut for a while. Ever since he's kind of got back into form, I feel like Jordan Spieth weeks where courses that fit his eye, this is one of them. I think it's going to be a perfect spot for him. So that's where I went up top.
Yeah, I mean, he was hitting it. He's hitting it really well. I mean, he hit it really well last week off the tee at the Scottish Open. And he's one of those guys that has great, imagination and creativity around the green that's needed here, which is why he's played so well at this, at this event. But yeah, I mean, I think the only question with him is if he's going to make enough putts to win the event. I mean, that's really what's held him back, which is so strange because before, like, he was such a good putter and he couldn't drive it straight. Now he's got that figured out and he's not making his putts. Even last week, I mean, I think if he made a few more putts, I mean, he was right in that thing to win it. So I think it's just a matter of whether he's going to get the putter going or not.
Yeah, and that's something that, I mean, if that's the thing with Spieth that is potentially missing, like I'm all aboard on that because it's been the opposite for so long. And honestly, in the last couple months, we saw him gain a stroke and a half putting at the Byron Nelson, finished second, saw him gain 5 strokes at Memorial, in which his irons kind of abandoned him. He finished 18th. So he's kind of figured it out a little bit more recently. So I'm hoping that this week is the week that Spieth puts it all together. And kind of going into this week, I basically thought Rory and Spieth were the two guys that I had a hard time not seeing in contention come the weekend, and getting 5 points with Jordan felt like a good bet. So that's where I pivoted to.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely considered him. I decided to go elsewhere. I will say my initial thought was to go with Jon Rahm, and the more I looked into it, I didn't quite trust his short game enough this week. I don't think this course is like the perfect fit for him. So I'm going to pivot. I'm going to take Scotty Scheffler.
All right.
I see a 16 on him here at FanDuel. I think
world number one.
He profiles obviously really well. I mean, he's been the best player in the world this year. He hits it well off the tee. He's got a great short game. There's not too much negative about him. I think the case against him would be kind of experience. I mean, he's only had one Open Championship appearance so far. He did come 8th last year, but I think that's kind of the lone knock on him. And I think it's fair to say that kind of was a similar knock on him at Augusta. He didn't have much experience there, and that's a course that the more you play it, the better off you are there. And he went out and won that this year. And kind of the more I looked into it too. I mean, you look at 2010. You touched on it in the opening. Louis Oosthuizen won here, and he came in with really not much experience. He had played in 8 majors before this one. He missed the cut in 7 of them, and he had a 73rd where he made the cut and he was the worst man in the field. And then he was 0 for 3 at the Open Championship, and then he won by 7. So, I think it's definitely possible. I think Scheffler, I'm just done looking for reasons, why he can't win places. I think that he's a good enough player to get it done, and I think that the number is fair enough. So I'm going to take a stab on him this week.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, world number one, we kind of scoffed at him not scoffed at him, but like his odds have come into now he's one of the best players. He's the best player in the world. So, I mean, his odds are what they are. So, I mean, after he won the Masters, it was like, is he really going to continue to play well at these majors? He obviously missed the cut at the PGA, getting the bad draw there, but then competed at the U.S. Open and easily he missed the putt by a couple feet to be in a playoff with Fitzpatrick. And if Fitzpatrick had stumbled down the stretch, he would have been right there too. So I like it. Yeah, I mean, I think all of these guys are worth consideration besides Shane Lowry, in my opinion, although he is an Open champion. And maybe I'm putting the fucking reverse jinx on that, which we talked about with Fitzpatrick and how Shane Lowry's going to win. But, I mean, him being under Justin Thomas, under Will Zalatoris, under Colin Morikawa, under all of these guys, even under Cam Smith in terms of the odds on him and on FanDuel, like it's tough to stomach that with Shane Lowry, but he's been a really good golfer this year. And I think him, Schauffele, Fitzpatrick, like they're not for me this week, but I would not be surprised if they play well. And Fitzpatrick seems to be as consistent as it gets right now. So if you're in a one and done league or in a pool of some sort, I think all 3 of those guys are viable. I just couldn't get there outright. And I definitely consider JT. Obviously, he won us the PGA Championship a few months back, and I think he's at pretty good odds here. But he hasn't proven to be able to play particularly well on link-style courses. He has not a great Open record, and he's one of those guys that could put that to bed very quickly. But I felt comfortable getting one of these guys on my card and then moving down to where I think the value starts to pop in the 30s and 40s. So let's pop on down there. And I guess before we get there, Cam Smith too. I mean, similar with Scheffler, it's like you could look for plenty of reasons to not take these guys at the majors, and then they'll just continue to play well and make you look stupid. But yeah, I don't know. I think Cam's kind of run out of steam. I mean, he did finish well on Sunday at the Scottish Open, but yeah. And I mean, if you're looking for like prop bets on these guys, I think there's a pretty good chance that all 9 of them could be in contention. So that's why we're at a major. It's tough to lay the juice on some of these. So moving down the board, we got Patrick Cantlay at 24-1, Will Zalatoris 26, Tommy Fleetwood and Colin Morikawa at 28, Dustin Johnson at 32, Tyrrell Hatton, Tony Finau at 34, and then Joaquin Niemann and Hideki Matsuyama at 37. Again, we're on FanDuel. some pretty big discrepancies between FanDuel and DraftKings this week, actually. I think DraftKings has considerably better odds. Neither of them are paying us to do this podcast, so I will say that DraftKings has better odds this week. But that being said, Matt, we're going to the board here. Anyone that you loved in the mid-20s, mid-30s?
I can't say loved for this pick, but I'm considering doing something that I don't think I've ever done on the show before, and that's take Patrick Cantlay. I'm not 100% locked in on it yet, but he's caught my eye for several reasons. I mean, he's coming in. He had 4th last week at the Scottish Open. He was 13th at the Travelers, where he kind of gagged it on Sunday. He was in the final pairing and blew up. 14th at the U.S. Open and 3rd at the Memorial. So he's coming in and hitting it pretty well. He's good off the tee. I mean, he's only lost strokes off the tee once since April of 2021, which is pretty insane. And he's a good scrambler. I mean, he's good around the green. He's 21st this year in scrambling. He was 1st on tour last year, which I think is going to, be huge this week. And he putted it well last week on these, fescue style greens. He was 18th in the field. He putted really well on Sunday. He was making a lot of big putts to get himself back into it for a while, especially on that front 9. He made, a few on the back as well that were pretty big. But yeah, I mean, I'm not in love with the number, but I think he kind of fits what I'm looking for over here. And look, he's one of those guys that has not, really gotten it done at majors, but guys who haven't really been able to get it done seems to be the trend of who's winning lately. So maybe I need to consider Cantlay and kind of open things up and try something different. We're on a run.
I mean, I guess, man. But
Patrick
what I want to say is for you to get out of my face with that, to be honest. But Patrick Cantlay, I mean, again, I think that the odds aren't great for someone who has not shown particular great major form, but his current form is pretty good. Obviously, he played great last year too, and he's as consistent as they come. It's just like, is he going to be able to win this event? I think if he was in the mid-30s, he'd be super popular, and that's why the books put him at 24 to 1 to try to limit their exposure, because they do think that he has the potential to win this week. But I don't know. I don't love Cantlay. I think we all know that, but I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing why he's below some of the other guys on this odds list. In particular, someone who we've talked about offline, who we're definitely both taking this week, Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, love DJ. He's maybe my favorite player in the field.
All aboard the DJ train this week. I mean, it's been a weird year for DJ. Obviously, he makes a move to the Live, coming off of pretty underwhelming season to say the least. I mean, he did play well at the Players, at the Masters, and to a degree at the U.S. Open. But we haven't seen him a ton. He did play well in the most recent Live event in Portland. So I think the current form maybe is kind of hard to gauge.
I have a little more on that.
Considering we haven't seen him since the U.S. Open or the PGA Tour. But yeah, I mean, he's played St. Andrews twice, 49th in 2015, and then 9th back in 2012. Oh, did he not? Did he play in 2010?
He did. He finished, I forget what it was. I think he was top 20 though.
Top 20. All right. So he's played here twice. And yeah, I think this game is going to set up perfectly for DJ. When his driver's right, I mean, he plays a great fade. I think he'll be able to position himself well. We know he's got a good short game. And the numbers we're going to get on these Live guys now are just a little bit more ballooned than they would be if they didn't decide to go to the Live. So I think the current form is tough to gauge with DJ since we haven't seen him a ton. But 35 to 1, whatever you're going to be able to get him at, I think is a great bet.
Yeah, I think something I heard from him in kind of his Live interviews, I was pretty encouraged by. I mean, he talked about it after the event, and he was asked about kind of the state of his game and everything. He said he felt awesome with a wedge in his hand. He said that he missed some fairways, but if he was hitting the fairway and he got out there with a wedge in his hand, he felt like he was putting it close. He's super confident in his wedge game. I love to hear that, especially going into this week where that's going to be a huge thing. The fairways are, wider this week. I mean, I think it sets up perfectly for him. And also, I mean, I know we can't really take what Taylor Gooch says as 100% accurate after the Ryder Cup comparison comments, but Taylor Gooch said that he played a practice round with DJ in that live event and to wash out because his game was very, very close to being back to elite. So I kind of like where DJ's at right now. I think he's going to play really well this week.
I mean, we're not far removed from like the conversation of when someone's playing their best golf, who's the best golfer in the world. Like for a long time, I think it was DJ, Rory, and it would pretty much go back and forth between those two. Like if they're playing their best golf, it's pretty tough for them to be beat. And we've seen some relative runaway wins at St. Andrews, and I think DJ has that in him where, like, if he's locked in with his wedges and he's making birdies, like, watch out. He could easily run away with this. So, he was basically my first click of the week. We were all on board on that. I mean, we did see enough in Portland at the live event where he's contending. And, I mean, I think there's a kind of not storyline, but kind of the thought that DJ kind of doesn't really care too much about his legacy or anything. And I think it's probably fair to agree. But I mean, just go back to last year, he finished 8th at the Open, 19th at the U.S. Open. And then into this year, 9th at the Players, 12th at the Masters, and 24th at the U.S. Open. It's just tough to not when the course is tough and the majors come. I think DJ naturally just steps up his game because he's just so much more talented than a lot of these guys. So
yeah, and I think as much as like maybe he's not working as hard as some of the other guys. I mean, when you're out there like in the event, like, they're all competitive guys. That's why they've gotten to this level. So like it's not like he's out there and he's going to be milking it. Like he's there. He's going to compete.
100%. Love it. So we're on the same page there. Dustin Johnson. Who else under 40 are you taking? Anyone?
No, those are my 3. I have someone just over 40 as well.
Yes, sir. I think I know who that is. But before we get there, I'm going to jump back on Hideki Matsuyama. It's been a weird year for Hideki too. Like we've seen bits and pieces of him being injured, but maybe he's not injured, and plays really well at the U.S. Open. Played atrociously last week at the Scottish Open. Played well at the Masters. He's obviously won multiple events this year. We saw him win the Sony Open and the Zozo back in October. And I'll reference a David Tyndale article that he posted earlier this week with some trends going into this week. And I think there's certainly the Augusta trend, which also points good for our Dustin Johnson bet. But
and our Spieth and Scotty Scheffler bets.
That does. So 9 of the last 10 winners of St. Andrews had previously posted a top 3 at the Masters. So love to hear that. And it's not Hideki similar to DJ. I feel like he's getting a little disrespected on the odds list here for a guy that continuously plays well at the majors. I mean, we haven't seen him, I guess, contend at an Open Championship since 2013, but played pretty well in 2015 with an 18th at St. Andrews and 14th back in 2017. I think Hideki's a pretty good play this week. I think when his driver's going well and his short game can be spectacular too. So with him, it's kind of like, is the putter going to click? And I think this week will be not negated to a degree, but I mean, people aren't going to be draining long putts. I think it's going to be more about the lag putting. And I think Hideki's a great play this week. He's been 10th on strokes gained approach his last 24 rounds, 9th in strokes gained on his par 4s, 9th in 3-putt avoidance over his last 24 rounds. So everything's kind of clicking from that standpoint with Hideki. And I got a 45-1, and I really like that number with Hideki.
Yeah, I think in terms of value, I mean, you can't argue the number. I mean, his resume is way better than what he's going off at this week. Especially given what we saw him do with the U.S. Open, I definitely see it from that perspective. He's been a little bit sketchy at the Open Championships in the last few years, but I definitely could I could definitely see the reason why you would get behind Hideki. I'm not a huge Hideki guy, so I'm not going to get there, but I definitely think there's good value there.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is good or bad. I mean, his miscut at the Scottish Open was his first miscut since the Wyndham in August of last year. So
yeah, I mean, I would also say like not all miscuts are bad miscuts. Like he gets a little extra time to prep for the Open Championship. I think if anything, like I think Jeff Feinberg alluded to this, but kind of like with that injury question mark, I think it's a positive that he even teed it up last week. It makes you think that he's pretty healthy because if he's got some kind of lingering injury, I don't think he plays the week before a major. So that kind of helps assure that mind, at least peace of mind there.
Yeah, and I mean, if he's been injured, I mean, obviously, I don't know how long the lingering effects were there because he did. He played amazingly at the U.S. Open, and he's played pretty well all year. So I do like Hideki at that number. So that's where I went. And now we're over 40-1 and above. Louis Oosthuizen, Sam Burns, Brooks Koepka, Victor Hovland, Max Homa, all between 40 and 45. Then Ryan Fox, Justin Rose, Robbie McIntyre, Bryson DeChambeau, Tiger Woods, Seamus Power, Sungjae Im, all between 55 and 65. And then we're 80 and above and into what many would consider bomb territory for sure at a major championship like this. So let's just get it out of the way. We're taking Brooks Koepka this week.
Yeah, we're taking Brooks Koepka.
Yeah. You can get a 50 on DraftKings. Probably get some potentially over 50 numbers at other places. But, yeah, I mean, there's not really – it's kind of been the same storyline for us with Brooks. I mean, you get him at a major and you get him close to 50-1. I mean, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, I will say the U.S. Open, like he didn't have a good finish, but like there were some encouraging parts of that performance. He was 11th off the tee in the field for the event, and he was 37th in putting. He gained 0.98 strokes putting. So, I mean, he hit it really well off the tee, and he putted pretty well, which kind of are two of the big things this week. Like, obviously, he'll need to have the wedges working, a little bit better than they have been, but he's doing what like two of the most important things this week well. So I don't think he's like that far off at an event like this. He's played really well at the Open Championship, 3 top 6s in his last 4 appearances, 4 top 10s in his last 5. And he's really comfortable on links style courses. A lot of people forget when he graduated college, he didn't go through like Q School and at that time the web.com. He played on the European Tour right away. So he's very comfortable playing links golf. He knows his way around these greens and kind of how to play these courses. And I think that's shown in his Open Championship performances. So I feel pretty confident in him this week in terms of what he has going for him coming in.
Yeah, and I mean, this is self-proclaimed. This is his favorite course. So he gets played St. Andrews. He obviously has made this bold move to the LIV Golf Tour, and I think in his mind at the time of doing that, like he still figured he'd be able to play the major championships because that's what he's always said is the only thing he really cares about is winning the majors. So this is just another chapter for him to potentially try to capture another major. So I think Brooks, like you said, I mean, the off the tee game, we know he can be spectacular around the greens and with the putter. At the U.S. Open, we did see he just couldn't get it dialed in at all with his mid to longer irons, and that really kind of held him back. And here he won't have to worry about the mid long irons as much. And it's going to be more of, being in the right position off the tee, which he's been able to do. So I love it. Yeah. I mean, 2015, obviously he's played here before, finished 10th, favorite course in the world. He backed that up with 3 other top 6s since 2017 at the Open Championship. Like you said, feels very comfortable on these link style courses. And I think it's all speed ahead for Brooks. I don't know if we're on an island at this point betting Brooks. It seems like people are kind of
getting close to that.
Yeah, people are jumping off the bandwagon, but
I'm staying on. Put it on the record.
I'll stay on as long as he keeps playing, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think also this event, like compared to Brookline, Brookline too. Like if you're not sharp with your irons, which he wasn't, like you're screwed. The greens are small. It's very thick rough. Like he was in deep trouble a lot of the time, and he couldn't do anything about it. If you're messing with your irons, you're toast, and that's what happened to him. This week, I think, and we talked about a lot bigger greens, even if he's missing a few shots. Obviously, we don't want him 70 feet away every hole, but I think we're talking about a lot different type scenario here than we saw at the U.S. Open. So
right, I would agree with that. So yeah, we'll see. We're on an island with Brooks at this point, but it's not going to take much. And similar with DJ, I think he's one of those guys that if he does play well Thursday, Friday, you feel like you have a guy that went off at under 20-1 in the mix come the weekend. So hopefully Brooks gets off to a good start. I'll be tuning in around midnight my time on Thursday morning. So looking forward to that. This range in particular, I think, is kind of tough. I think Sam Burns, obviously, I've taken a ton of this year. I'm kind of fading the younger guys this week. I think it is tough to win an Open when you haven't had a ton of experience with links golf. So I don't hate the number on Burns. I think it's a good number. He's been spectacular this year, but I'm staying away there. Victor Hovland, I've dipped my toes in a couple times recently. He's been really bad, so I can't.
yeah, last week. Whew.
I can't imagine him just turning it on and winning this week. But we've seen his number balloon into these very, very large numbers, and we'll see what happens with Hovland. I don't know if he'll be able to turn it around, and eventually he's going to win another event, and he might go off at a really nice number. So we'll see about that. We're going to get there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like Hovland too, but after last week, maybe I would have taken it if we didn't take him last week, but after what I saw last week, I have a sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah, that's very fair.
One of the
I
worst.
think before we get to the rest of the board, we'll bring Boss in. I think he's got a couple picks under 50-1. But I also think he may be on our guy Max Homa, who we've hit on a few times. So, Boss?
Yeah, Max Homa is definitely on the card this week. I think Matt, I don't know, we were talking about it last week. I mean, he's played well all year long. He played decent enough last week. Not this, I mean, closer comp to St. Andrews than, American golf, but not quite apples to apples, but good enough for me. I mean, I love some Max Homa, so I'll be invested there.
Yeah, and he's also the secret's out. Like, we're not getting 65, 75s on Homa in these big events anymore because he's played that well all year.
Yeah. I still think a 50
great.
is decent. I mean, I think that's probably close. Any lower, and I would have to think about it a little bit, but he's my guy, so I'm all in.
Is there any concern? I mean, the one thing that kind of I was on the fence and I kind of jumped off because now he's paired with Tiger. And that comes with a whole nother circus, and it's kind of like his idol. Like, is he really going to be locked in and focused?
It's certainly not positive, I would say, but I've already placed the bet and I can't get out of it, so I'm not going to really let it phase me. But I think that's something to consider for sure.
But also, we did see
Neiman played well with Tiger. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've even heard, Rory has said before that he doesn't like being paired with Tiger, just from the fan perspective. Like, there's a lot going on. And I guess, Rory's close, just used to all the fans being about him. But I think a lot of, from what I've read from different guys, it's like the fans are just kind of tuned in on Tiger, and they're kind of not really completely respectful to the rest of the group. Which makes sense. He's earned that following. But
Tiger hits a shot, and if he doesn't hit it as far as you in the fairway, he hits his shot, people are just moving.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. They're setting up for his next angle. They don't care.
Yeah. So maybe Max's approach should be to try to just hit his drive shorter than Tiger.
Who's the third in that group? It's Tiger.
I think it's Fitzpatrick.
Fitz. Okay.
Yeah. Which is also notable. I'm considering him in one and done this week, but.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I'm going to spin zone it, Max is certainly the third fiddle in that group. Just, it's in the UK and whatnot. So I think there'll be a decent amount of Fitz supporters. So maybe he just gets to put his head down and do his thing, make some birdies, and keep it moving. That's what I'm going with.
Fair enough. Anyone else under 50 you're taking?
Yeah, so, I mean, I typically live in this range anyway. So the 30 to 50 range is kind of where I filled up. And then I have one bullet left for the top. So I have DJ with you guys, so we're all on board there.
Love it.
I got Hatton. I just think having a European, and he's had success on the course. More so in the DP World Tour has an event there. I think he's won it twice and a bunch of other top fives. So he's very comfortable there. So I like Hatton. Played decent last week. I'm taking a speculative shot on Louis, more so based on his history there. I mean, win second. I mean, he hasn't lit the world on fire, but, he's played okay in the DP World Tour. Not DP, the Live Tour, but he did have a DP World Tour start before that. So take a little speculative there. And then I think at the top I was leaning JT, but I think I'm switching to Spieth. So
Okay.
that
Wow.
would probably be where my bullet goes up top. I have one left in the chamber for that top zone, and I think it has to be Jordan. He's kind of fucked me a lot this year, which makes me hesitant, but he just always plays well here. And I had him last year, but he finished second, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
I can just picture myself being a stubborn piece of shit and taking someone else for a few more points. And then he goes out and wins, and you're running around having a party, and everyone else is having fun. And I'm just sitting there in the dark.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I was actually curious if that was a pivot you were considering. So, all right, good to know. So, Boss is on Spieth, DJ, Homa, and Louis,
And Hatton.
and Hatton. Yeah,
And I also love the Tiger to make the cut prop. I think Tiger makes the cut. He's just too experienced here. Flat golf course, shouldn't have to worry about the leg for 2 rounds. We can do this.
We can definitely do that. I'm definitely going to be in on that as well. So Tiger to make the cut. Love that.
I have a Tiger bet this week too.
I need to place an obligatory sprinkle on Tiger, and the book I can find the largest number on, because I can't miss out on a Tiger Woods miracle. So that will be an unofficial bet. If you listen to the podcast, I will be taking Tiger Woods.
What's your Tiger bet, Matt? If you say to miss the cut, then we're gonna.
No, I'm gonna take him first round leader.
Oh,
yeah, I think he's like geared up. I mean, he's been playing a ton of golf going into this. I think he's gonna leave it all out there. I think that it's tough for his body to keep up with 4 rounds of golf, but I could see him getting off to a very hot start.
I fucking love that, actually.
He's comfortable on this course. I mean, I could definitely see him popping off to an early lead. I don't know if he'll be able to sustain it for 4 rounds, but yeah, I think why not?
All right, Tiger Woods, let's go. Yeah, all right, perfect segue, because we're in this range where Tiger is living on FanDuel, and I think people are kind of scoffing at the fact that he's at 65-1, but I don't think it's a super unfair number. The guy fucking dominates this place. And I think that all year long with his comeback, this has kind of been penciled in as the place he probably had the best chance to win, and the best chance to succeed at. So I'm all aboard Tiger playing well this week. I think it'd be great for golf, and I think there's a much better chance he makes the cut than misses the cut. So I saw somewhere today that the 2 biggest bet props this week are Tiger to make the cut and Tiger to miss the cut. So there's going to be some very happy people and very sad people come Friday afternoon. So
yeah, I think I was surprised that he got the PM AM wave. I thought that they would give him the early then the late to give him more time to recover, rather than making him kind of go back out there in the afternoon and then again in the morning. But I do think, like, from just a course standpoint, like, this is a very flat course. It's a lot different than him like trying to walk around Augusta, and you know what I mean? Like, this is a lot of easier course to get around for him.
Yeah, or Southern Hills.
Yeah. So I think that's like kind of an not talked about enough advantage that he has going for him in comparison to some of those other courses that are just physically taxing to kind of get around.
Yeah, 100%. So I love it. All right. So we've given our Tiger spiel. I will kind of, to Boss's point about having a European, Englishman, someone in that native area on the card, I'm going to go to Justin Rose this week. 60-1. We've seen sparks of the old Justin Rose recently. At the Canadian Open, he should have probably shot a 59. Couldn't quite close the door on that, but finished 4th the Canadian Open, played okay at the U.S. Open. Didn't play particularly well last week, but we saw a ton of the big names miss the cut. He did play all 4 rounds. He did finish 69th, but well, that's neither here nor there. We saw Colin Morikawa finish 56 last year and come in and win this event. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the veterans this week. I think Rose has plenty of links golf under his belt, and we saw him play well back here in 2015 where he finished 6th. I think it's just a perfect setup for kind of these aging vets to a degree, where we saw obviously Zach Johnson win not being particularly long, and I think Justin Rose is a much better golfer career-wise than Zach Johnson. Obviously, he is getting up there in age a little bit, but we saw him come runner-up back in 2018 at the Open. He's made 8 straight cuts at the Open Championship. This is a great event for Justin Rose. I don't know if the 60 is the best number available, but I think anything between 60 and 100 is definitely worth your money. So I'm going to go with Justin Rose this week, and a little bit of a comeback story for a former world number one who's kind of lost his way over the past 6 months. Because it's not like we're super far removed from him playing pretty good golf last year at certain points. So I think another major champion at an event where he's going to feel pretty comfortable. I think Justin Rose is a good play.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think he's play well. I think he's kind of one of those veterans that I could see sneaking around. He's used to playing over here. Yeah, I don't hate that at all.
Lovely. So yeah, we're over 60 to 1. I mentioned Bryson is in this range as well. I think there were some much bigger numbers on Bryson at a certain point, but I think it's tough to read where his head is at in terms of like he's now back and feeling healthy again, but I don't know how consistent he's going to be for 4 days. Don't love that. Another guy I did consider, Seamus Power at 65 to 1. Low key, Seamus has been spectacular this year in the big events. And he's definitely no stranger to link style golf. We saw him finish 9th at the PGA, 12th at the US Open, 27th at the Masters, 3 very good major championship performances. And he's been pretty consistent for the most part all year. And we obviously saw him get that win under his belt at the Barbasol last year, which coincidentally was obviously the week before the Open Championship last year, which he didn't qualify for. So I think he's happy to be here. And I like having another potential European on the card. I don't think I'm going to get there in an outright. I don't love the number, but he's going to be on my top 20 card for sure.
Yeah, I don't mind that either.
So I kind of mentioned this to you before we jumped on here, but I'm going to read a few more names before we get to 100 to 1 because I don't know. I think that there's some pretty decent value in the 60 to 100 range. We got Sung J M as well, then Corey Connors, Gary Woodland, Mark Leishman between 80 and 85 on FanDuel, then Patrick Reed, Adam Scott, Cam Young, and Thomas Peters all at the 95 line on FanDuel. Again, I think DraftKings has some better numbers for some of these guys, but then we're over 100, Matt. So I don't know if you have any long shot plays, but if you got any outright plays left, hit them.
Yeah, I have 2 sitting at 95 right here. Patrick Reed, to no surprise, will be on the card. He's one of those guys. I mean, if it's going to turn into a short game contest, I definitely think that that's the type of event that sets up well for Reed, especially if, it gets messy out here and the wind starts picking up, and it's one of those events that guys are just trying to, hang on in tough conditions. I like Reed a lot. 95 seems like a big number on him. I know that he hadn't played particularly well, so far this year on the PGA Tour, but he's another guy. I mean, he finished 3rd in the last live event. He played average the first day. I think he was even par, and then he shot -4 and -5 the last 2 days to come -9. Looks like his game's kind of turning around. He's got that short game going. He's got 3 top 20s in his last 6 Open Championships. And I think he's got a little, chip on his shoulder coming in this week. He was granted lifetime membership to the European Tour a few years back, and they would not allow him to play in the Scottish Open when he put his name in there. They said you can't play because you're on the Live Tour. I know Poulter ended up, kind of winning that case, but I think Reed just kind of dropped out after that. We saw him out there in the practice round today with the Live golf hat on. I think he's, going full villain, and this is going to be Patrick Reed with the chip on his shoulder this week. I could see him playing really well.
Yeah, no, I considered it, but I think it'd be a big ask for him. But at the same time, it is something I think sets up very well for him. If his short game's on, he doesn't have to worry too much about his driver being a problem. I mean, there's definitely levels of that. Obviously, you need to be hitting it to a degree towards your aim point because he could end up in some of these fairway pop bunkers. But I don't hate that move at all. I think it's very good value on a guy that's shown he's very capable of playing well in these majors, as much as I hate the guy. So I like that. Anything else before we get over 100 to 1?
Yeah, I'm going back to our guy Thomas Peters.
Okay.
He was a real popular play at Augusta. Everybody seemed to like him and be on him, and he picked up that big win, I want to say in February over in the DP World Tour in a big event, and everyone was talking about his game trending. And then he had kind of a rough stretch when he came over to the PGA Tour in mid-February through that Masters. He played pretty well with the Arnold Palmer, but other than that, he just didn't really perform. And it seems like everyone forgot about him, but he's playing pretty well lately. You go back to his last 4 events. He had a 10th at the KLM Open over on the DP World Tour. He was 27th at the U.S. Open in Brookline, where he hit it well off the tee, and he was 15th in the field in putting. He lost to Hao Tang Lee in a playoff at the BMW event 2 starts ago. And then he was 37th at the Irish Open and a tune-up coming into this. But, I mean, that's another thing. Like, if he had beat Hao Tang and he was coming in on a win, I feel like he'd be way more popular. He kind of just seems to be forgotten about right now. I mean, he's used to playing the link-style golf. If there's one major that kind of sets up the best for him, I would pick this one. I kind of like it. I mean, I feel like this is an event where you can kind of get an unlikely winner. And I feel like a lot of the time we feel like it's like the older guys when we saw like Darren Clark steal one. But there have been sort of those younger, unexpected guys too. Not that Peters is super young, but like Louis Oosthuizen won when he was 27. Ben Curtis was 26. He came out of nowhere. Like, I feel like kind of these guys who are even, lacking some experience can come out and steal this thing too. So I'm going to take a shot on Peters. I mean, he's got super, big talent. We've been talking about him for the last couple of years on the show, and he hasn't really produced in a big event, but he seems to be in pretty good form, and he's flying under the radar so far this week.
All right, so some pretty on-brand picks for you down the board here. I like that. I think Thomas Peters is a stud. I think he gets his own way a lot of the time. So obviously we've seen him hit the hotel in the practice rounds early. That's not always the best sign, but he seems to be shaking that off and feeling decent. So I like that. And yeah, I mean, I think that Gary Woodland, Mark Leishman, Adam Scott, I think could all be pretty good plays here this week. Woodland's been playing good golf. Leishman sets up really well for this course. And Adam Scott as well. I mean, we haven't really seen a ton of Adam Scott. I guess we're starting to get used to that to a degree. But he's also played very well in the Open in the past as well. So I think that range actually has some pretty good value there. My card's pretty full from an outright perspective. So I'm moving down towards some top 20, top 30, top 40 bomb type plays. I have a slew of Americans who I think are at pretty nice odds who actually have played some pretty good golf. And I don't think that they're locks by any stretch of the imagination, but I like Billy Horschel for a top 20 play this week. I've seen him play extremely good golf, and I'm kind of surprised to see him over 100 to 1 at this event. Back in 2015, he did come in 30th, and I don't think he was necessarily playing as good a golf as he did this year. Obviously, he's coming off 2 missed cuts with the U.S. Open and the Scottish Open. But prior to that, we saw him win the Memorial, 2nd at the Arnold Palmer, 16th at the Honda, 6th at the Phoenix Open. Won the event in Europe this year. Is a notable American who plays a bunch of European tour events. So I think Horschel is going to feel pretty comfortable this week at St. Andrews, and I think he'll be a good top 20 play. JT Poston and Russell Henley are 2 maybe under the radar
Postman
type plays. They're both well above average with their JT Poston, obviously his stats are a little bit skewed because of how well he played at the John Deere, but 3rd in strokes gained on his par 4s in the last 24 rounds, 2nd in proximity from 75 to 100. So he's got that wedge game locked in. And for me with Henley, it's wide fairways. His approach game is spectacular. He's first in this field in strokes gained, proximity 75 to 100 yards, 12th in 100 to 125, 24th in 3-putt avoidance. I think both of those carry some nice value in the top 20, top 40 markets. So those are two guys I'm going to be taking a look at. And Russell Henley did finish 20th here back in 2015. And surprisingly, he's qualified for well more open championships than I thought he had. He's also missed 4 cuts out of his 7 tries. But I've been a Russell Henley proponent for a long time. So I think that he's going to come to play this week.
Yeah, that's pretty on brand. I like the Poston play as well. I can see him playing well. He's got a good short game. He's obviously in good form coming off that win. Any thought for Abe Answer? I like him for like a top 30, top 40 play.
Yeah, Answer and Keith Mitchell are both on my radar as well.
Yeah, Keith, we were talking about with Boss before this started, has some, family ties over here. His sister went to college at the University of St. Andrews or St. Andrews College, whatever it is over here. His family will all be here this week cheering him on. So,
all right. I do kind of like that spin zone with Mitchell. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's playing as good a golf as he's played in his career too. So I like that.
Yeah. And he's another one where actually, when you think about the setup for it, like he's a pretty good scrambler. I think I saw he's like 15th on tour in scrambling this year. And he obviously hits it really well off the tee. He just kind of sometimes falls into that trap that his, mid to long irons aren't great. But again, that shouldn't be a huge, factor this week. So I do kind of like the setup for him. He putted well last week on these style greens. So yeah, I'm in on Mitchell.
Yeah, Mitchell's 16th in scrambling over his last 24 rounds in this field. So I do like that too. All right. I'll jump on board in a Keith top finishing position play. I like that. I think we've rambled on here for quite some time. I don't have a ton else to get to. I think Kevin Kisner is also at some pretty legit odds if you're looking at him in a finishing position fashion. A course where the distance definitely doesn't take him out of it. We haven't seen him play consistently well for a decent amount of time, but his last event was the Travelers where he finished 6th. And he's got a runner-up at the Open Championship back in 2018. So I think link-style golf doesn't necessarily hurt Kevin Kisner. So other than that, I think we'll get into our one-and-done thoughts for the week, recap our cards, and pray for the best this week. So I am in 158th now in the Mayo Cup. So continually staying in this position where one more big win and I'm in the really nice money range. I'm got Dustin Johnson locked in.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling pretty good about that. I have Fitzpatrick available, have Zalatoris available, Burns available, Hideki available. I feel like the floor with Fitzpatrick is probably a little bit higher than DJ just based off current form, but looking to pick a winner this week, and I think DJ's the guy. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I have DJ as well.
Okay. All right.
I feel really good about him this week. Obviously I need a winner, but
yeah. Well, sometimes I would feel bad we're having the same one and done pick as someone, but we also both had Max Homa the week that he won.
Yeah, very true. It's a good sign. Good omen.
Very good omen. Boss?
I would love to use DJ, but unfortunately he got me $0 at an event that I can't remember earlier this season, like the week before his wedding or something stupid. Where I was like, the next week I was like, oh, like that makes sense. Like he literally wasn't there. I think JT is who I have locked in. It doesn't really matter for me. I am in like 3,500.
Yeah, I'm telling you that it doesn't really take much to like get into the money. Like,
I know, but I also don't even I don't have a Rory, a Xander. Like I don't even have DJ. Like JT's the highest player I have, I think, available. And I was actually pretty high on JT this week, but I've slowly kind of faded the other way. I don't really have a good explanation for that. But I might take another look. But right now I have JT, and I'm not over the moon about it. But it's just not my circumstance. I'm more invested in how you do, to be honest.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's see. We'll see if Dustin Johnson get it done for the boys because it's a team play. So I'd love that. So just to recap my card, I got Spieth up top with DJ, Hideki, and Brooks in that middle tier. Then Justin Rose, obviously the sprinkle of Tiger. And I may add Patrick Reed with you guys.
Look at that.
But for now, because that does feel like don't have to risk too much there with Patrick Reed to make it a nice payday. But Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. And then finishing position wise, like I mentioned, that slew of guys over 100 to 1, Poston, Henley, Kisner, Keith Mitchell, Horschel. And also, we didn't really mention him too much today, but I do also like Tony Finau in that same capacity.
Okay. I have Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay. So prayer for that one.
I still can't believe that's where you landed there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm throwing up a Hail Mary here. We'll see. Maybe St. Andrew will answer. DJ, Brooks Koepka, Patrick Reed, and Thomas Peters outright. And then finishing position, probably some kind of combination of those guys. And then Abe Answer, Keith Mitchell. And I'm going to add Harris English in there for like a top 30, top 40. He's 190 to 1. It just feels really long.
The disrespect.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played much since he came back from his injury, but he played pretty well at the Travelers. Like I've seen enough out of him that he should not be at 190 to 1. So I'll toss him in like a top 40, see what that pops out at.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And then Boss has got Spieth, Hatton, DJ, Louis, and Homa.
Nailed it. Look at you go.
Beautiful. So that's where we're at. It's going to be a fun week at St. Andrews, 150th Open Championship. St. Andrews, I mean, just you can't predict a better script. So the only thing I can hope for is that Tiger Woods plays well and that Dustin Johnson wins. So
amen.
There you go.
All right. Talk to you guys next week. Last major of the year. Let's get it.